For the most part, with the Metroidvania Forge series, you've been following along with some of the things I'm doing, and I'm showing you some of my processes. But as we get into Chapter 6, I want to focus on the bigger vision of how to develop and what that looks like. And so there's kind of a loop, there's kind of a cycle that all developers go through. And I'm going to coin a term for this series called the Forge Loop. I know, kind of cheesy, but this is what it is.
Hi, my name is Michael. Join me as we build an epic Metroidvania game in Godot 4 using GD script. This is the Metroidvania Forge.
Like all game devs, you started with something that you're imagining, and imagination is key. That's the thing that kind of kicks us off. That's right. That's where our motivation comes from to make these things. When we consider a boss battle, you know, we're thinking of all the memorable boss battles we've encountered in previous games that we've played. Maybe you're thinking about a favorite boss from Hollow Knight or some other game that you played, and that's kind of where the idea starts. We don't start with a state machine. We don't start with animations or tools or any of that, right? It starts with the imagination. And the question I want you guys to ask yourself as you're developing a boss or even just a feature for your game is, how should the player feel? Should they be nervous, excited, overwhelmed? What kind of story does the boss tell? Is it a towering guardian, a nimble assassin, or a corrupted hero? And before we build the mechanics for this, we need to have that imagination in place. So that's the first step. Now, of course, ideas are exciting, but the problem that we've all experienced as new game devs is that we have an idea, but it really goes nowhere. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to begin. And so that's where the planning comes into place. And of course, you have to learn and figure out how to break things down and break our plans down. This boss is going to be a big feature. And so we're going to have that challenge. So I put together a worksheet that's going to help us plan, and it's going to help us identify all the things that we need. And these plans are actionable, right? That's the point. We take our imagination and we put actionable points down on paper that we can move forward on and really begin to implement. Here, when we're planning, is where we're going to define our boss's identity. We talk about, what attacks does he have? What does this teach the player? What's the challenge? When and how is the boss vulnerable? Does it have multiple phases? And what makes this encounter different than maybe anything else that the players fought before? Because great bosses aren't just a collection of attacks, they're carefully crafted lessons that also kind of tie into that emotional appeal that we imagined up in the first step. Now, this worksheet is available in the downloads for Chapter 6 on my itch.io page, so you can hop over there and grab it, and there's 3 different forms. One of them is a fillable PDF, otherwise you can print it, or you can just use it as a template so that you have an idea of the kind of things that maybe you should plan for. Okay, so you've imagined up something awesome, you've put plans down on paper, and the next step is to begin building. And you know, some features and some things in game development are pretty quick to build. A boss in particular is not very quick because there's a lot of pieces that go into this. So when I'm talking about building, I'm not only talking about scripting and putting things into Godot, but we need to create pixel art. We need to create animations. We're going to have sound effects, music, and then we can bring all of that together and start building and designing the attacks and everything in Godot. The benefit is at this point, because we've imagined something and made a plan, every pixel that we place and every line of code that we write should support the decisions that we've already made coming into this step. Okay, now the next step, and this kind of gets mixed in oftentimes, but it's playtesting. So we need to figure out if the work that we've been putting in is working, were we right? So playtesting answers questions like, are the attacks for the boss readable? Is the arena the appropriate size? Is it too big, too small? Is the fight too easy? Or maybe it's too difficult or too frustrating. And then another question, which you might need help of others, is, do players understand what we're trying to teach? Every boss looks great, but until we actually fight it, we don't really know if it's a good boss, right? Now, a natural part of playtesting is that we need to take feedback, bugs or issues that we find, and we need to refine it. And so you're going to go through this loop, and refining looks a lot like the building phase, except that we're hopefully just taking what we've built and kind of honing it in and improving it. Other things that we might be working on is adjusting pixel art or animations or music or sound effects to get a better impact, or maybe to fit the mood that we hoped for a little bit better. As we make these tiny adjustments and polishes to the boss, we're going to see that it can have a pretty dramatic effect sometimes on the overall feel of things. And then once we're finished with the refinement loop, then the whole loop starts again. Maybe it's the next boss or a new feature, or maybe it's a whole new game project to begin with. But this is the roadmap. This is how we need to approach all of our game development tasks. Something like this. where we begin with the thought, the imagination, and we use that to fuel our creativity, to create plans that we can act on, build, test, refine it, and then start all over again. Okay, so that's the Forge loop. And this is the development cycle that you should be going through and practicing. Now, as mentioned, there is a worksheet that you can download. It's part of the pack for this chapter on the HIO page. So I want you to grab that. And your homework for this first episode is to start filling out and planning your next boss or bosses that you want to create. You know, start with 1 or 2, maybe 1 is good. And then we'll go through this whole process together. And I'm going to do the same. And so in the next video, I'm going to review a little bit more in depth some of the planning that I go through as I'm going to be working on the boss, the first boss for the Metroidvania Forge. And then we'll just go through this cycle together throughout this chapter. And of course, there will be some of the regular videos where I'm getting deep into the code when we're in the build phase, but we'll also be doing a little bit of pixel art. We'll be doing some music and maybe touching on sound effects again briefly, and kind of just talking about how we can bring all of this together. So thank you for watching. I hope you guys are excited to build a boss together with me as we go through this chapter. If you're new to the channel, then please subscribe so you can see what's coming next. And as always, we'll see you next time.